control the major mom.
Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson. Welcome to Town Talk. I have a guest with me that many of you have probably recognized. He's been on the show several times before. Dominic Cotton, advocate for brain injury survivors. He's up in Hartford and speaking to legislators very often, and we're going to talk about some of the issues concerning brain injury, and maybe that might dovetail into other issues that are going on with disabled and how we take care of our disabled on the level in Hartford. Let me put it that way. All right, welcome.
How you doing?
Welcome, Dominic. Nice to see you. Nice to have you. As our audience probably knows in the past, that you advocate strongly for brain injury survivors. And if someone's watching right now that has never met me before, I have a son. I'm the mother of Robert Johnson, brain injury survivor. So this is near and dear to my heart. And tell us what's going on in Hartford right now with brain injury survivers.
Wow.
How's that? Now that I stumbled all over my words.
It's a mouthful of I don't know of different things that are going on right at the moment. I guess we're in a continuation of kind of what I feel like has been a battle that's been going on for 2.5 years.
Yes.
And I think it's more of a battle to be heard, for the state to be a partner with us at the table instead of telling us what they want to do.
Right.
And then just the only way that we have anything to do is to really object. And obviously the way that we get to object is we get to have public hearings.
Right.
And we get to have them in front of our legislators, our senators, our representatives from Appropriations and Human Services, which is close to about, I want to say, almost half of the full legislature.
Oh, that many
are in between that. Yeah, there's 55 on Appropriations, and there's 18 on Human Services. So
Okay.
there's a good amount of people that we get to have public hearings in front of. Our issue that we have right at the moment has to do with what they call privatization. And what that means is currently, since this program was first started back in 1999, we've had Department of Social Services social workers
Right.
who've administered the program as they do the evaluations of what people's needs are, come together with the teams, help put together the plans, as a group all together. And they know our participants. They know they know your family member.
That's right.
And so these are people that we've had long-term relationships with. I know for myself, most of the people that I've worked with for probably about 8-9 years.
That's correct. I find the same issue with my son. You get used to one social worker. He or she knows intimately the needs of my son's needs. We sit at a table at team meetings. They meet my son. They get to know him as a person. They know his doctor, and we all work as a team to do the best we can for Robert. And I don't want to lose that.
Neither do I. And that's the issue that we have is they want to outsource this to an outside case management organization, which may be good, it may be bad. Some of the problems that we have with that are it takes a lot to get to know this population.
Right.
And everybody in this population is different. So it's not like dealing with somebody who's schizophrenic. There's some generalizations you can make about schizophrenia
Right.
to the whole population. With brain injury, you can't make those same generalizations. So there's a lot you have to learn in the process. And usually people depend upon the people, the family members, also
Right.
the doctors, to be heavily involved and for them to know the person and work with the group as a team together.
Right.
Now you throw in somebody brand new from the outside.
Right.
They're going to do one of two things. They're either going to think that they know it all and take over that process and be like, well, we don't think this person needs this because this costs too much money.
Right.
Irregardless of what the person is actually doing, like your son's making great strides as far as his
Fine
artwork
artist, yes.
and being a teacher.
Right.
So what would happen if they said all of a sudden, well, you know what, we think this costs too much for the state, so we're just going to, we're going to cut this up.
Well, that would set my son back a long way. He would have come up to a point where, and as you and I both know, brain injury is a very unique thing in each person. It takes many years. My son's injury is 18 years old. 18 years ago he had the accident, and it's taken him every bit of 18 years to come to the point where he is functioning, so high functioning and able to drive, live alone, pursue his dream of being a fine artist. I can't imagine that being taken away from him. It's very scary.
And that's what we're really worried about, is we're really worried that somebody else is going to come in from the outside, and instead of making an objective, well-informed decisions with the team that's there, they're going to decide things or say that this is what the person needs.
Right.
Rather than knowing the person. And so that's what you get with an outside organization, is you lose those years that the Department of Social Services has been working with this population to a group of people that has no knowledge of working with this population and is going to be looking, through their guidebooks or the department's guidelines and just, sticking to them like word for word instead
Right.
of taking a look at the person.
Well, that's exactly right. And when you think about it, you hire an outside organization. Now, this is what I'm thinking as just a layperson and not knowing enough of the issue the way you know it. But I'm thinking this way. Look, they're being hired to save the state money.
Yep.
So they're going to sit there and they're going to say, okay, they hired us as an agency, an overseer, because they want to start cutting down on Department of Social Services on the state level. They're going to give us the job, and if they're only thinking that their job is to save a buck, they're going to find every way to save a buck. It's bad enough that every time I turn around, the paperwork Robert has to fill out and the hoops we have to jump through every year. He's always going to be brain injured. That's not going to change, but we do it every year. They're always trying to find a way to kick him off anyway. I mean, as good as the state is, they're always, the federal government, let me cut to the chase, federal government doesn't talk to the state level. So sometimes I have to reiterate to the federal government to keep his Social Security, things like that.
Yep.
It's a very complicated process as it is. And now if you bring in an outsider who all they want to do is show their client, the state of Connecticut, that they've saved them money, they're not going to care about the human being.
Well, and what they're putting this out as is they're calling it conflict-free case management, which basically means that you can't be a provider of the direct services and be a case manager at the same time. Well, we already have conflict-free case management. It's called Department of Social Services.
Right, right.
But you can't be conflict-free if you don't have the knowledge base to work with this population. What's going to happen? You're going to get a different views, and then you're going to go to the top end of DSS, and they're going to give what they think. Here's my difficulty. The people that are on the ground which are the DSS social workers, and the social worker supervisors, have the knowledge base. The people who are the bureaucrats at the top end of this have not worked with this population.
That's right.
And they make decisions that are not necessarily in the best interest of the population.
Which is amazing, because I'll put a little emotion into this, because that's where I come from, all emotion, because I have a son that's brain injured. You go to school to become a social worker. I'm sure that many of these social workers, I would like to believe, went into that field, that vocation, because they cared about disabled people who were in need and felt that they wanted to help their fellow man. Well, when they get there, something happens in the process. They end up forgetting about the people they're helping and worried more about the politics of what's going on and what they're told to do and how they hang on to their jobs. I'm going to say this is how it looks to me from a layperson. The head of the main woman that's in charge of DSS, she may have started out caring about people. She comes across now like she could give a damn. She comes across to the families like, look, this is what I have to jump through these hoops for the governor or for the government. I'm going to retire pretty soon. I really don't care. These are my marching orders. Take it or leave it. We're cramming it down your throat. And to hell with your loved one. Now, I can say that I'm a mother. You may not be able to say that.
I could say the same things, but I have to worry about, you
go up there
what I have to deal with when I go up there. But I have said a lot of those things.
You have, Dominic. Yeah. And you know what? I'm saying them because what I found out as a mother is I can go up there nice with a degree of decorum and say, good morning, legislators on both sides of the aisle. I'm Kathy Johnson, mother of Robert Johnson, brain injury survivor. Thank you so very much for listening to me today. Or I can come up there and say, I know all the tricks you politicians play, and you're not playing them with me. Either way, either approach doesn't work out anyway. They do what they want. But I have to hand it to you. We need people like you who have the knowledge, the meat and potatoes of the argument. I could never articulate the way you do it because you've done your homework, research, and understand the complicated paperwork that is in front of all of us that we can't even pick apart. So I want you to stay nice because we need you there. But I don't have to stay nice.
Well, you point out how complicated this really is, and here's my issue that I have with Department of Social Services. All right. Somewhere in the back of their heads, they have a master plan, and it's like they wait until the federal government comes along and says, "Okay, you need to do this," and then they figure out a way to implement another piece of their master plan.
Right.
So this is what happened when we went up in August. They wanted to do away with pre-vocational services.
Oh yeah.
And I actually called up CMS because I looked up the laws and I looked up what CMS was trying to do, and they were trying to take people who were pre-vocational, which at some point your son probably was.
Yes, and explain pre-vocational for people.
Pre-vocational. You're giving them the necessary tools for them to be able to become employed. So pre-vocational would be teaching them how to concentrate, teaching them some of the functional things of this is what you have to do in order to prepare to go to work.
To work.
Right.
Because we want to simulate them back into the community. That's the goal.
Right. And so what the federal government was saying was, okay, we want a time limit. So you need to do this for a certain period of time so that we could push them on to supported employment, so that they weren't sitting in this pre-vocational services forever, but that there's goals that they should be meeting to move towards supported employment. Right. What the state of Connecticut took that as is we have everybody on pre-vocational services. If they haven't transitioned to supported employment, we're gonna take them off that service altogether.
And I remember they gave them about 2 years or so on that.
Well, no, they gave them 6 months. They were going to do
get
all
6 months, and then we pushed it, and we got a little more. I remember.
What we did was I contacted Centers for Medicaid Services, and what they were saying was along the lines of what I was saying, which is it's up to the state to say what the time limit was. And so they said, okay, well, we'll give people 2 years, and if they're making towards their goal, we'll give them another 2 years. The other part of it was they were offering a lower cost service, which was less individualized, but there was nobody there to provide the service. So they were going to get all these things up and running in 6 months and transfer 200 people off of this one service into a program that wasn't even there.
Which means they're in limbo. They're learning nothing.
Right.
And what they don't understand is that it takes if they had done that when my son was in pre-vocational,
Right.
he would have never been where he is today. It takes a long time in a lot of brain injuries.
Yeah.
If you just drop a person on their head in 2-4 years, or they don't have a program, their brain doesn't develop, they don't go anywhere, and they're a perfect candidate to be put in a convalescent home and be warehoused and just rot there as if they had nothing. It's so wrong.
And that's basically what we said to them, and that's why the legislature they gave us 2 extra years for everybody, and then another 2 years because it wasn't reasonable to ask that all this stuff be done in 6 months. It's ridiculous.
No, it was ridiculous.
But that's my example
of how this happened.
of how the state works. Is they have this master plan. Oh, this is what Centers for Medicaid Services were saying to them, that they needed to find a way to push these people forward, and they were looking at it as, okay, here's your judgment day. You're either going to move backwards to nothing, or you're going to be able to make that great leap forward.
And this is only one of the hurdles there's so many hurdles like this. This is only one of them. Now we're up against the privatization. Every time we turn around, Dominic, we go up to Hartford and we think we have a little respite and our loved one is in a good place, and we've gained a teeny tiny bit of ground, and they come up with something else.
I got it on track for once every 6 months, something major
Occurs.
Occurs. And I would like nothing else but just to go and do my work and focus on like other things.
Right.
But it's like you have to be the protector. You have to be the protector of these people, because not everybody can speak for themselves.
No, I'm an advocate, of course, for my son and for everyone else. And the thing about it is that I'm losing my train of thought. Just give me a minute here. You go up there and you ask for like that much, an inch, and by the time you're finished, they give you like the end of your fingernail, and then you find out later that you've been duped, and you didn't even get that. You're practically right back where you started from.
I look at it this way: I'm not going up there asking them for anything. I'm asking to keep what we have,
right,
and not have it taken away. And it's not that we're going up there and we're like, we want all these other things. No, we're trying to keep a program that was designed by somebody who understood how to work with people with brain injury. And she administered it for the first 5 years. We had no issues.
None.
And then another 5 years went by where they didn't pay any attention to us whatsoever.
Right.
Didn't have any problems. Everything
Right.
was going along great. Now all of a sudden, the governor comes in, and I understand he wants to make things more efficient. He wants to change things around, modernize it. But there comes a point in time where there's some things that are working. You just, you let them be.
It's not broken.
Why fix it?
Well, I'm going to say this about our governor. He inherited a difficult problem. I'm sure he inherited. I know, having been an elected official in a small town, I know what it's like to face the public and make hard choices. But I'm seeing that this government is ruining health care. He's ruining the programs for the disabled. He's taking monies away from the state police, where the towns cannot afford state police coverage anymore. We have to privatize. He is going after things: safety, health, the disabled, the least among us. When's he going to hit some big-time people that, the general public sits there and they say, oh, we're happy with this. Oh, he's cutting programs, our taxes are going down. Well, that's wonderful. If you're going to work every day, you go to your mailbox, you're still walking around, you're breathing nice, your children are healthy, your world is just wonderful. Your biggest problem is to get to the baseball game on time. I want everybody listening to this program to understand that if you turn around and your child is brain injured in a baseball game, you're going to be facing what we're facing, and you're not going to be that happy that you saved a few bucks in your taxes. You're going to wish the program was there.
Well, and that's the equalizer of brain injury, is this can happen to anybody.
Well, you can give an example, can't you?
Sure.
Give that example.
You know, a good friend of ours, a state senator out towards the other end of the state, in Maine.
In Connecticut, yeah.
He came on board with us with this whole stuff with brain injury.
Right.
You know, and we were talking, and we were like, this could happen to anybody.
Yeah,
and,
we all said that.
And it did. He got a brain injury because he was lifting up a couch and bringing it up a set of stairs, and he fell backwards and he hit his head, and he had to go through a hospital for special care. And
The whole thing, yeah.
He's relearning how to, you know, get his balance, how to talk, and you know, he's fortunate to win his election and get back in, because he was at 8 years, and he if he retired right then or didn't run and get his 10 years in, he would have no long-term health benefits, and that's what his concern was, that, you know, he could have the health benefits. He's there.
Right.
I've talked to him. He's intact.
Yes, I've seen
You know,
him.
he's compos mentis, except he has difficulty with speaking.
Well, and you know as well as I do, in a political situation, if you have a little difficulty with speaking, or in the real world,
Yep.
the people write you off right away. You're not speaking well. You know, this is a very difficult situation. I look at what happened to Gabby Gifford.
Yep.
Yes, she's advocating against guns and all that, but what she has is a brain injury.
Yep.
And she's going through the same thing. I want people to know that everybody doesn't have the support group and the people
Nope.
and the money around her the way Gabby Gifford does. There are so many Gabby Giffords out there that nobody's ever heard of, that nobody even thinks of, and these are the people we are talking about. And what frustrates me so much, Dominic, is that we go up there, and I have to say, and I'm going to sound so cynical, but you can be my foil. You can be the nice guy here. I'll be the bad cop. We go up there, and honestly, I go up there, the legislators are eating their sandwiches, eating potato chips while I'm talking to them. They're on their cell phones. The woman that heads the committee, the chair, is always under her desk texting, all that. I'm up there crying my heart out to them about my child, and they don't seem to care. All they care about, and I can say this as a politician, is getting elected, keeping their power and whatever ego they have left intact. That's all most of them care about. And quite frankly, and I'll take this last minute to say this, I'll get it out on cable. Quite frankly, if the governor were a Republican, the Democrats be helping us out, but the governor is a Democrat, so we've got the Republicans helping us out. They all eat breakfast together there, and they all do the same dance, and I'm tired of sitting there as a mother, and as Judge Judy says, please don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining outside, because that's what they do every day of the week. Now, thank you for allowing the host to get that out of her system.
That's all right. You know what?
So how do you do it? How do you go up
Here's
there?
the one I really get bothered by. And
What is it?
This bothers me more.
What is it?
Is, you know what? Those people do face elections, and I've had serious heart-to-heart talks with a lot of these people, and there are a lot of very good ones that have their heart in the right place. The problem I have is with the bureaucracy, because you know what? They're not held accountable to anybody.
No.
They're not. And an administration comes, an administration goes, and they're the ones that are still there. And those are the people that I have a problem with, because they figure they'll just wait out whatever one administration says, or they're the ones with the plans when they're saying, okay, you got to cut 5 or 10%, and they're going, here's what we're going to do. So, or the commissioners. The commissioners are appointed by the governor.
That's right.
They're not elected.
No,
They got more control over my life than probably anybody else does.
but they get their marching orders from the governor, or they wouldn't have had their appointment.
They do. They do. But the governor also looks at this, it's kind of like going, it's like they look at it from 30,000 feet up.
That's
They
right.
They don't understand what's going on down at the ground, and they're also getting their information back from people that are down on the ground. And it's not the frontline social workers, it's not the social work supervisors.
No, it's the bureaucracy.
It's the bureaucracy. So we go to the bureaucracy because they kind of presented this to us like it was a done deal. And we talked to them, and we told them what our concerns were. And out of that, the only thing that changed within their proposal was that they put in that these people have to have the ability to become brain injury specialists. Not that they have any knowledge base about working with brain injury or experience working with brain injury, because that's our primary concern.
Right.
They put in there, we want people with master's degrees. And we were like, well, no, it's more of the experience than it is the
degree.
The degree, because there is no master's program for brain injury.
Yeah.
There isn't. So we went to them, and they thought they were listening to us. They didn't quite understand exactly what we were saying, or they did understand what we were saying.
They understood.
And chose to ignore a large portion of it.
The latter is what I believe, but go ahead.
And so we went from there, and I think everybody at that point in time thought that this was, done.
Yeah.
And so I had a conversation with one of the legislators who told me, well, they forgot to do something. And what they forgot to do was they forgot to do a cost-benefit analysis on this. So, because in order to get privatization for anything, you have to prove that it costs more for the state labor to provide that service and do everything than it would for an outside organization.
So that wasn't done.
It wasn't done there. It also wasn't done on another program that was transferred out, the personal care waiver, which is for people who have physical disabilities, who need somebody to help them, with their activities of daily living.
Right.
Being able to dress, use the bathroom, transfer everything else. So they transferred this program without doing this cost-benefit analysis. So, and they were getting ready to do it again. So one of the reasons that this got knocked down pretty heftily, and it's the first time it ever happened, the first time that
I was there.
The first time that this ever happened, because the legislature has only had this opportunity to have this oversight over these waivers since 2007. And they actually had to take it because the governor back then, Governor Rell, vetoed it, and they overrode the veto in order to be able to have oversight of this. This is no small feat. This is a big deal. And the fact that they actually turned them back and said, not just amended it and said, like the one in August, they said, no, you guys have to go back to the drawing board because you didn't follow the law. These are laws.
Right.
They were, obviously
that was
quite annoyed.
That was the day I was there, right? And,
Yep.
And then when they went to caucus, there were people leaving the room to go find out how they were going to vote. No, it was a whole big deal that day. They really had they didn't see this coming.
Well, I mean, they caucus, you think that they just go in there listening to what you have to say. They have met before, and if there's major issues, they talk about it at a caucus beforehand.
And after.
And afterwards. So they knew this issue was there beforehand, and they talked about it afterwards, and we were in shock that it actually got voted down.
I got to tell you that I have to, our home audience watching, I have to tell people that honestly, it was the biggest shock of our lives that we won a round.
Yeah.
But we paid a price for winning that round.
We did.
I think you should tell everyone the price we paid for winning one crummy little time in how many years?
Here's the price that we paid.
Okay, here it is.
All right. in this waiver program, every year, there are a certain amount of people who are supposed to come on from Department of Mental Health Addiction Services that they have reserved for people who are on money follows the person. They're trying to get out of a nursing home and
Right.
get into the community. Those are reserved too. And then we had a group of people which are those that took their loved ones home and are struggling in the community and having to pull their hair out and do everything else to make sure that that their child is doing okay, and they're the ones who are taking care of them, and they need serious help.
They do. That's right. And go ahead, please continue.
So there's 13 slots for them. So what the government, what Office of Policy Management decided to do was they said, we're not going to put these people onto this program because we don't have the social workers to work with them. Even though their plans are written, everything's planned, everything's done.
Ready to go.
All they have to do is go stamp, you're ready to go, and they can start hiring people and doing other things.
Yeah.
They're saying, because we got turned down on this,
On the privatization, because of the illegal thing that went on, they got turned down. They're going to not take these people.
yep, they're what I call, they're holding them hostage.
They're holding 13 people hostage because we spoiled their little plan.
Right.
You mean to tell me they don't have enough social workers to take on 13 more people?
And that's what's going on here.
Now I want to dovetail off of that. I want my audience at home to understand that when your child comes out of Gaylord or New Britain or whatever with a brain injury, you have a choice. They either will send them to a convalescent home or you can take them home with you.
Yep.
Now, if you're young enough and you have a home and you have a way to take your child home, of course you're going to take your child home. But it's going to be a struggle because you're going to have your hands full with a brain injury survivor and whatever else is physically wrong with them. So you're waiting to get on this program, and now they're telling you you're going to have to wait indefinitely. You are this way. Let me tell you what they're headed for, folks. Think about all the people whose parents can't take them home, or their elderly parents, or the person has no one. What the state of Connecticut, I believe, and I'm not speaking for Dominic, I believe that they want to warehouse all these people that come out of Gaylord and New Britain and places where they're rehabilitated for 7-6 months. They want to put them right in a convalescent home or in a program where they can warehouse them. I call them human puppy mills, where my son, had he not had the luck he had and been in the program at the right place at the right time, and had my husband and I not been healthy enough to take him in as we did, my son could be in a human puppy mill now and not a fine artist and not driving and not living alone. He'd be in some place where nobody sees him, in a house where the state tells you, oh yes, he's getting 3 meals a day and a place to sleep, but his brain isn't getting better, he's not being assimilated into the community, he's put aside like a piece of garbage wilting away in a home. And what I would say to people that way is, we care more about our animals and dogs in puppy mills and little dogs that have to be rescued every day of the week on Facebook, which I love animals, but we don't care about human beings, and that makes me sick to my stomach. I challenge every person who cares about a dog that's in a dog pound or a cat or anything else to go up to Hartford with us and start telling them you care about human beings, because honestly, this is affecting all of us. Thank you again, Dominic, for allowing me that people have to understand this. This is not a joke. This is the way the government and the governor and everyone else will put them in big organizations where they're out of sight, out of mind, and you have no idea how they're being treated. These places aren't even inspected. They aren't even inspected. And I can tell stories that I know, but I can't on TV. I'll get sued. But they're not even inspected like your food is inspected. So I have to say that I want our listeners to understand that this is not a joke, that this country is not caring for its loved ones, its veterans, its human beings. You wonder why, on a national level, that Donald Trump is making a noise out there and people are, and the establishment is getting hysterical? This is why. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Well, I think much like what's going on with like the heroin epidemic, which is going to like, so many
New Hampshire?
so many towns and other places. When people all of a sudden have this happen to them,
Oh, the middle
they,
class,
they
nice
all,
middle class.
they all of a sudden realize
Right.
and want to do something, and that this is an alarming situation. Brain injury cuts across
Everybody.
every single age, every single race, every single gender. This
The
can happen.
veterans, the veterans.
This can happen to anybody.
Yeah. And what people don't understand is you're comfy with your life. Your life can change in a nanosecond.
Yep.
You could, look, I had Otley Lundgren in Oxford, Connecticut. 94-year-old woman went to her mailbox just to get her mail. Poor lady was still living a life. And what did she get? Anthrax poisoning from her mailbox. That's what killed her at 94 years old. People think that they're home free. Stop thinking about the football games and all the other things and the puppies and all that stuff. I'm going to get my head knocked off in Oxford for saying this. Start thinking about the people you don't see who really need some help out there. And stop being selfish and self-centered and thinking about just your creature comforts. And stop worrying if your taxes go up $2. I'm sorry, but when they need it, they'll be the first ones out there to be screaming that they want it.
And what this really comes down to, all of it, is it's money.
Money.
It's
Yeah.
money. So they did their cost benefit analysis, and really what they're saving over adding new social workers. This isn't just keeping the program the same. So whereas everybody else is talking about layoffs, they're talking about this is their way of getting around their no hire stuff.
Right.
And hiring more people. But the problem that they have is these labor agreements that they've come to face.
Oh, sure.
And so in the cost benefit analysis, when I took a look at it, I mean, right off the bat, the one thing that strikes you out, if you work for the state, 25% has to go above what you're paid.
Right.
For retirement.
Right.
23% goes for health care. And then you pay your workers' comp, your unemployment compensation, and your Social Security. So before you even hit like $1, you're paying somebody $1, you're paying them $1.6 with their benefits attached.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that part of the problem, too, is all these agreements that they've made over the years, and you saw what happened with UConn.
Oh, yeah.
And the labor people like pulled it off the table. I mean, I can tell you our program overall, we saw a 3% increase in 2007, and we saw a 1% increase in 2014. And a program's been around for like 15, 16 years.
Well,
They were going to get that in 1 year, 4%, and they get it every year. And we're in austerity right now because there's not the money coming in
right.
that there once was, and so they have to renegotiate all these things. So this all comes down to dollars, but sometimes, you know what, if you're paying for less for something and you're not getting the product that you expected in the first place, and you're making a disaster out of 500 plus people's lives,
Right.
what's that worth?
I don't know. What is it worth? I guess it's worth nothing to some people. It means
Yeah.
nothing, unless you're one of the 500 people.
And that's the problem. So you know what? I took the opportunity to try to go and talk directly with the administration.
Okay.
I was up prior to our December meeting, and
Right.
I talked with Nancy Lyman's the lieutenant governor's policy guy, and we dealt with him before a couple of years ago, and he ducks me every once in a while when he doesn't want to deal with me.
Run away from you, Dominic, nice guy.
Quite literally. I mean, I've been up in the legislative office building. He's come through the cafeteria. You know, I kindly waited for him to come through like one door, and then all of a sudden
no.
I didn't see him there, and I know he saw me. And he went out the back door, and so I found him. I'm
You
like,
headed him off at the pass.
I'm like, Howard. The guy was like, you know, he's like,
He caught me.
and I was like, you know, I have some issues here. Can we, you know, can I email him to you?
Is
He's
this
like,
the lawyer fellow?
yeah, I'm
Yep.
like, he's like, email him to me.
Yep.
So I was up there for a special session, and I was advocating for our people. And, you know, I see him, he's out there, he's not ducking me, so I'm like, you know, we got some serious issues. Can we sit down, can we talk, can we figure this out? And he's like, yeah. I'm like kind of like semi in shock.
You're saying to yourself, wait a minute, this can't be true.
So I said, okay, well, you know, we got this hearing on Thursday, and I was like, when? He said, after the holidays. Oh, I'm thinking, well, you know, that's reasonable.
Right.
That's, you know, within a couple of weeks. So I come and look on January 1st on Facebook as I'm like thinking about doing this, you know, getting in touch with him next week. And he's no longer in that position anymore. He's actually moved over to be the legal person for Luke Bronin in Hartford, who the mayor's. And guess when the inauguration is? January 1st.
So there we go.
So here we had somebody that we'd worked with in the past, and you know,
He knew he was leaving.
He knew he was leaving, and because there's no way he could have like waited. Oh, I'm getting my appointment on. You know, December 31st, he knew this.
And now you don't have to name names, but you were telling me that you went to certain legislators or certain people in government, and zero, no
Yeah.
answer, not even an answer.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I did, I actually, they came out with this whole thing about the 13 slots and that they can't, you know, fulfill them because they don't have enough social workers. So, I mean, I wrote to Ben Barnes, who's the Director of Office and Policy and Management, and he's probably one of the most powerful people up there because he's the one who makes the budget decisions for the governor's office. And he's got to work with the legislators on this right at the moment. And I wrote to him. I said, you know, well, look, 13 people throughout a year, one every 30 days, you know, would be a good way to handle, because originally they were saying they couldn't put these people on for budgetary reasons. And he was like, you know, I agree with your budgetary assessment of the situation. I said, you know, we might be able to support you on your privatization if you fix some of these things. I gave him a list of 5 or 6 different things.
So we're trying to have some common ground.
Right. So they were due to have another meeting on this on the 29th, and because the legislature wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to comment on this publicly, because they got no comments the first time around, because we didn't think that they would actually do anything with them. And so I got my response back after that. You want to know what my response was?
What?
My response was the governor did Senate Bill 17, in which he wants to take the legislature's oversight and ability to have public hearings over any changes to the brain injury, to the waivers, not just our waiver, any waiver. He wants to yank that and make it that it's just at the commissioner's discretion to make changes to our program.
Because it's too hard to face the public.
Yeah.
It's too inconvenient.
Right. So, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the commissioner, and I was nice to the commissioner. I walked over to him at the beginning of this proceeding, and I said, you know, you do know I'm coming at this from the other side. He's like, I know. And, you know, I think he kind of understood where we were, you know, from. And I said, this is nothing's personal and everything else. And so he's sitting there, and the senators and the representatives are asking him, well, where are these people going to have their public process? And they're like, he looks over at Kate McAvoy, who's dealing with Medicaid, and he was like, well, we can have like public hearings of some sort, couldn't we? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, thinking to myself, yeah, sure, those are going to be really objective and public.
Right.
And you're going to do what you did at these family meetings, which was you gave 5 days notice, Only 5 people showed up. Five
Right.
groups of people showed up because nobody knew about it. We expressed ourselves. You went through your dog and pony show, and at how great this was going to be, and you didn't listen to what our concerns were.
That's exactly right. I mean, that very first meeting we went to several years ago, we found out by accident.
Yep.
We found out because it was spoken to some of the doctors and people in the room, and they filtered it down to us. And how many people did we get in that room? About 400 that day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they actually had the Connecticut State Troopers.
They
up.
actually had to call
Yep.
in the 3 state policemen.
Yep.
3 of them standing there.
Yep.
Yes. I won't say the part I played in that, but we all know
yeah.
we all know
So it's all on record.
It's all and what Elaine
Right.
and Father and you and all of us did in that room that day. For the people that know me in Oxford and know that I'm not a shrinking violet, we'll leave it at this. I got up out of my seat and I let them have it, and they try to make me sit down, and the next thing they try to make the rest of us shut up too. Next thing you know, we had 3 state police in the room.
Yep. We essentially took over that, but that was
We
because
did.
it was a public forum.
It was a public.
And this wasn't, there were people from the legislation there, and this is the way that you have to be able to be heard. Is you have to have public input.
Dominic, you talked about because the governor doesn't know things that he's insulated. He's up there, and in a way our legislators are insulated within the building, the Capitol. They're all insulated, and this one thing of not having the public hearings is another way to detach themselves and not have a problem. And I see politicians and leaders do this all the time. Case in point, in my own hometown. During a selectman meeting, we have audience of citizens before the meeting begins and after the meeting and at the end of the meeting, so that they can come in with their concerns in the beginning or voice their concerns on what they heard during the meeting. Well, our leader in Oxford has decided that he's changed the agenda. We're only going to have one audience of citizens, and it's at the end of the meeting. Because, once again, it's very difficult. It's said because there's not enough time, but that's not the case. You just don't want to have to deal with any questions and answers. The least you can deal with it, and the more you can insulate yourself, the better.
Well, public input. This goes across the board for everybody.
Public input.
Because the way that the governor's trying to redo the budget right at the moment is he's trying to take away all of our public input. And
Everything.
the way that they do that is they say, instead of having line item control that the legislators have over everything, all these programs, they have
Right.
line item budgetary control to say, okay, well, yeah, we're going to spend this amount here. And that's how there's a negotiations between the governor, the House, the Senate.
Right.
It's the only source of protection that you really have. He wants to take that away and say, well, you know what, we're going to give a pot of money to DSS over here, and it's up to the commissioner how he wants to spend it.
Right.
Where's our voice in there?
No, we have no voice. We
Right.
hardly had one anyway, but now for sure.
Because he's saying that the representatives and the senators are afraid to make tough decisions because they're going to have to face election if they're held accountable. Well, you know what? I say change some of the system. There has to be somewhere in the system where they have to vote on things so that the public knows where they stand on them. They can't automatically
Right.
let things go through that, like this contract for UConn. They could have said, oh, we're gonna wait 30 days, and once the 30 days gets passed, it gets done automatically.
Well, Dominic, they can't make tough decisions because it's an election time. Let me say it again. All we care about is winning the next election and keeping our power. All we care about is getting our person the next governor or the next president. And the hell with everybody else. And then you've got legislators standing there, and I won't say which party, it happens to be my own party, saying, oh my goodness, not have the legislators have a say, when in fact they're just as happy not to have a say. It's all ridiculously staged and programmed. And honestly, I'm getting just the way most of the voters in the United States of America are getting.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting sick of it. We're getting sick of it, and we've had enough. Now, the governor's going to some town meetings now. I'd love to go. We went one time, and we got up and we challenged him, but you can barely, even if you're nice, you can once you go down a road with this governor and you just want to ask him a difficult question, he goes into a humada, and then his lieutenant governor has to save him. I see that. I'm going to lose my head for this. But you know what? It's the truth. I'm telling the truth. So anyway, we have 10, fortunately for you, Dominic, and for our listening audience, we only have about 8 more minutes left of the show. So if you're enjoying the show, well, I'm sorry it's going to end in 8 minutes. If you're not enjoying it, why don't you hang in with us for 8 more minutes? It might be worth your while.
Well, I mean, like I said, we have the system we have. And you know what? If you don't speak up, or if you don't say what things that you're passionate about and find a way to get it done, then you can't complain about the system. If you're
No.
if you're not speaking up, you're not involved, and it's very comfortable from certain places to come out and say on Facebook, I don't like this person or I don't like that person. And I'm not picking any particular.
Right, everybody has their opinion.
It's comfortable. But unless you go out and vote and then show up and talk to these people and tell them the reasons why, you know what? None of them are experts on your issue.
No, they don't know a thing.
They're not. And the only way that you become an expert or you learn about it is you become involved in it. So yeah, I'll go up and I'll talk with people in the legislature, and I'll explain things. And I'll keep good relationships with them because I want that opportunity to be able to do that. Different people go at it from different angles. I mean that's what I try to do, because I know that's my only opportunity really to get my voice made
And Dominic, we need people like you. And as much as I laugh about what you do and all, it's not laughable. You are one of the key, you and Elaine Burns and Father Russ and all, you're all key people who go up there with the facts and figures. I'm not a facts and figure girl. I'm a person that explains it as simply as possible and only understands that we have to start caring about people other than ourselves. And we have to, and those of us that do have brain injury survivors in our families and all, you can't get online and complain and do all these things. You've got to get up, go to Hartford, and be in the room, because the only thing they understand, and they barely understand it, is when you pack that room with 400 or 500 people, with your loved ones sitting next to you, and you insist on being heard. There's a place for activism.
Yep.
I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. was an activist, yes, in his own kind of way. It's the activists and the loud voices and the people who put themselves out there that when you come down the road and you take for granted that we have the Disabilities Act, and we have people can vote and all these things that we didn't have before, women's vote and all. It took angry people channeling their anger in getting up there, not beating people up, but getting up there, voicing their opinion, and putting great pressure on the politician and threatening that you will not vote for them if they don't budge and show you a degree of respect. And that's where we get too complacent. We're too worried about bread and a circus. We're too worried about supper and a beer and the football game. And that's all we worry about. And I can tell you, we're all human. I'm not going to blame people. But if that's how you're going to be, Cicero said, you can control the masses if you just throw them bread and give them a circus. Well, that's what people like. They have their fun in life. They have their money. They eat their dinner. And that's it. But you know what? It comes for them sooner or later. It comes down the road sooner or later, just like the people in New Hampshire who are now have a heroin problem in a town in New Hampshire, the last place. Well, it's happening in the inner city, but then that's just the garbage of the world, the inner city to you. it doesn't matter till it hits you. And then you believe the government, like our power plant here coming into Oxford. You believe the DEEP, and you believe the Siting Council that it's within the limits. Look at Flint, Michigan. Those people believe their government, and look what happened to them. You have to be ever vigilant. You can't let these things happen.
And it just goes to show how little money that it would have took to fix this, but now you're having to take care of all these other people that have lead poisoning and brain damage as a result
Yes.
of the lead poisoning.
And let me say something about the debate the other night, Hillary with Sanders. Now, I'm a Democrat and proud to be one. But when they get up there and they cry their eyes out over Flint, I want to hear Hillary Clinton say, I'm going to President Obama and I'm telling him to send down the Corps of Engineers and go down there and fix this immediately. What are we talking about it for? Go send the Army Corps of Engineers to Flint, Michigan and start digging up those pipes and making that water clean. I mean, I don't want to hear you talk about it. You're Hillary Clinton. You want to be the President of the United States. You're Obama's pal. Do this. Do this for those people. This is the frustration. We only have 1 minute. I'm giving it to you. Aren't you a lucky guy? Go ahead, Dominic. 1 minute.
Well, come on down. Well, we don't have a date yet for our next public hearing, but you know what? We have to make the most of these because, like I said, they want to take them away from us. And so if we don't go and voice our concerns, what our issues are, and really force the situation.
We need the numbers.
Yeah.
How can they find these things out? Do you have a website, anything like that? Facebook, where Dominic Cotton.
Facebook. I mean, if you want to Facebook friend me, I put it up there. I know some of the other organizations, CT Brain Injury Support Network.
Yes.
They'll put it up on their website.
Yeah, you want to remember the name Dominic Cotton on Facebook, or Elaine Burns, Connecticut Brain Injury Support Network.
And my stuff is always public, so I'm always talking about what's going on up there so anybody can see it. It's not that you have to be a friend with me. You can take a look at it anytime, and I'll tell you what's going on in our advocacy efforts, not just in this, but, in several different things. And I live my life a little bit on the wide open side of a book because I feel it's open for other people to learn from.
Well, Dominic, I want to thank you very much from the bottom of my heart as a mother of a brain injury survivor that you went up there with the knowledge you have, the homework you do. You're brilliant when it comes to understanding all these programs and how to present them to the legislators. You gave us credibility. You gave us clout when they were going to just brush us off as being nothing but a bunch of loudmouths. And when you got up there and Elaine got up there and Father got up there and we met with the Commissioner Bremby, we showed those people that we do our homework and we have facts. And they were impressed.
Yeah.
We've got to impress them just a little more.
That we do.
Well, Dominic, I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you so
Mayor.
much. We're running out of time. And I just want to say to everyone from Town Talk, this is Kathy Johnson wishing you all a good evening and a better tomorrow. Thank you for listening.